All right, Tom Homan, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to start with due process, what everybody's talking about right now. They're manipulating this clearly. Stephen Miller says it has nothing to do with immigration. How do you see due process and what they're trying to do politically here to leave, I think, all these people in this country?
Well, look, I think there is due process. There's certain amounts of due process, and I've been clear from day one the Alien Enemies Act has a lesser process, but it's consistent with the law. The Alien Enemies Act that was enacted by Congress. Look, Congress created the law. We're just enforcing it. But due process, you know, as far as everybody we remove ICE, there is a due process. Hundreds, if not thousands of hours is spent on making sure what their immigration status is, what their criminal status is. They look at, you know, anything from social media to undercover operations to confidential informant information. A lot of due process goes into every single removal ICE does.
If you're illegal, isn't that the end of due process? If you find out that you're not supposed to be in the country and you're deported, that is the due process, right? I don't understand what they're demanding.
I'm talking interior enforcement procedures. There is a due process that, right? We make sure who we got. Before we go out and make an arrest, there's a lot of due process. You know, when we go out to arrest an illegal alien, it's a targeted enforcement action, which we know exactly who we're looking for and where we're most likely to find them, based on a lot of work, a lot of due process, make sure that guy is in the country legally, and we can remove him. So, you know, there's less due process, but there is a due process nexus with every alien we remove.
It seems like they want more, that they want a trial for every illegal in this country. They're trying to get as much as they can to hold on.
I agree 100%. They didn't ask for due process for the millions that put across the border, right? They didn't ask due process, and they said, Secretary Mayorkas says, well, everyone's vetted. Well, we know they weren't vetted. You don't have access to a foreign nation's criminal database. So, you know, they violate the law, they violate the process, the legal process to enter the country legally, but when we want to deport them, now all of a sudden want to take advantage of every legal process out there. So they can't have it both ways, but I'll say it again, everybody we arrest and remove, there is an amount of due process done, a lot of work done to make sure he's the right person and he's removable.
Tell us about this. I mean, DHS wants to, I guess, incentivize self-deportation, which I do think is going to be the biggest part of getting rid of this many people. It's hard to deport 20 million people, but if they start self-deporting, you want to incentivize that with free flights, with a stipend for them? Talk about that.
Well, you know, there's two things. Number one, I think it's going to increase removals. Number two, it saves the taxpayers a lot of money because it's expensive for teams, an entire team to go look for somebody in a neighborhood that don't want to be found. It takes sometimes hundreds and thousands of hours to find somebody. So it's going to be a cheaper process. And but I think, in addition to the incentive, I think the main incentive is if you leave on your own, you have a chance to come back. Either you come back as a tourist or a visitor, or maybe you have a U.S. citizen child that can participate for you someday. But if we have to go through the process of going through the whole procedure, ordering deportation, having to find and deport you, there is a mandatory bar placed on you from coming back. So I think that, along with incentives, is going to increase removal numbers, and it's the right thing to do. There are millions of people standing in line doing things the right way, taking their tests, doing their background investigations, right, paying their fees. Put them in the front of the line now, instead of sitting in the back seat because of the millions of people the Biden administration releasing the country illegally with fraudulent asylum claims.
The president on the plane had an incredible moment where he essentially indicated that he wanted to send troops into Mexico to deal with these cartels. We have some of the most dangerous, vile operations happening south of our border to move people in, the trafficking, the rape. We've heard the stories. These are the worst of the worst. And talk about what exactly the plan was to go in and to help the Mexican government decimate cartels that probably the Mexican government is afraid of, I would imagine. Oh,
if you got rid of the cartels in Mexico, be, they'd be grateful, because how many members of the media and prosecutors, judges, politicians have been murdered by the cartels. So I think Mexico will be a far better country. I think they'd welcome it. But President Trump, there's a reason he designated them terrorist organizations. The cartels in Mexico have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. So it's the right thing to do. To work with Mexico, wipe them off the face of the earth. It'll make this country a hell of a lot safer, and it'll certainly make Mexico a lot safer.
The president has indicated he wants to reopen Alcatraz. As a law enforcement guy, I mean, it makes a great story. What do you think of that?
Well, look, we're always looking for beds, and Alcatraz would be a great place to put the most significant public safety threats, most significant national security threats. while we're dealing with all these nationwide injunctions of removal. So, you know, we're looking for beds right now. We're out contracting for beds. So Alcatraz, I think it should be on the table. I think it's an option.
It would send a message, right? Because I still
It's
think
sending a message like Gitmo did, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it sends a strong message. But again, we need hardened facilities for the worst of the worst.
And we absolutely need to send a message, because there's still a lot of residual crime from the George Floyd days and all the lawlessness of the last few years. We still have, in major cities, we have drugstores closing down because they can't stop the looting. It'd be nice to send a strong message to people that you can't keep doing this to our country.
And it keeps happening.
Yeah.
Look what happened in New York City this weekend with officers being attacked by what they believe are members of the TDA, which we're looking for now. But yeah, the president's going to send a strong message. I keep sending a strong message. This stuff's going to end.
Yeah.
It might have got away with it under the Biden administration. We're looking for every single one of them right now.
How are you doing, just finally, how are you doing on deportations? You guys have a massive workload of millions and millions of people to get out of this country. Is that plausible in this term?
You're going to see it ramp up considerably. We're concentrating on, like I say, the worst of the worst, public safety threats and national security threats. Well, that aperture is going to open up quickly. We're going to force immigration laws in this country. We'll still always prioritize the worst first.
Yeah.
But that aperture is going to open. We got 1.4 million illegal aliens who had due process at great taxpayer expense. They did choose to become a fugitive and hide out. We're looking for them now. We're going to start opening the aperture. You're going to see the removals skyrocket in the near future. We got to get past all these nationwide injunctions being issued by district court judges. District court judges, let's use that. They're a district court judge, but they're making nationwide injunctions. Right. I think we'll win that in Supreme Court. But you want to see the aperture open up, and I looked at the numbers this morning. ICE is right above about 70,000 interior arrests, which was far, far above what the Biden administration did on the interior. So we're going to keep ramping them up.
All right. Hey, Tom Homan, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Got it.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.